Well, good afternoon and welcome everyone to our second session of the afternoon. This session is on the future of live events and XR with Jim Farmery, Development Director at XPLOR. The session will be looking towards the future of live events and new innovations and what they will look like going forwards, including new experiences and XR. After a career in product management encompassing JC Energy PLC and Pace PLC based in Bradford, Jim moved into the creative sector development for 10 years at Yorkshire Ford and subsequently worked at Creative England. He joined the Backstage Academy team in July 2020 to set up the XPLOR research arm and establish the first research centre in the world dedicated to live events and entertainment research. Welcome, Jim. Over to you.
Thanks, Charles. Hello, everybody. I hope you've been enjoying the session for the last couple of days. As Charles said, my name is Jim Farmery. I work for Backstage Academy, heading up XPLOR. And what I'm going to do over the next few minutes is talk a little bit about the history of live events, certainly in the kind of last 30 or 40 years, the context in terms of sustainability, the problem, if you like, or I guess the challenge as we would see it at XPLOR, and then a little bit about our discipline, our background, and some of the projects that we're looking at going forward. So in terms of live events, and certainly in terms of large arena events, it all started back in the 1980s with bands like Pink Floyd and stage designers like Mark Fisher, using repurposed or out-of-season ice hockey stadiums or different event venues, and looking at how you take a creative vision musically and turn that into a live, spectacular event. If we jump forward a few more years, you've got people like the Rolling Stones with the Bridges to Babylon tour. As you can see, bigger and bigger tour, stadium size now, looking at more complex engineering. In the case of the Stones, an actual bridge that retracted and expanded onto a B stage. When it didn't get stuck, that was during various shows. Complex automation systems, computer control lighting, video, and a whole series of advanced technical solutions, providing bigger and bigger and more spectacular events that generated huge amounts of revenue. In the case of the Stones, for that tour, over $500 million, and it was seen by 4.6 million people all around the world. Things had clearly moved on from a few roadies and a white transit van pushing flight cases around. Moving forward a few years to a band close to everybody's heart, I guess, Take That. Post boy band kind of era, post Robbie, even bigger and larger kinetic structures, providing the backdrop to the show, performer lifts, a centerpiece, and actually an integral element of the show itself. More and more complex engineering, more and more advances, and larger shows. And I'll show you a little bit of a video about the backdrop of how this was created and actually how it was loaded into a venue not far from here in Huddersfield. So as you can see, highly complex structure requiring huge crew capability, huge automation design, advanced technology in its development and build, incredibly complex video screen to provide an amazing integrated solution for the audiences that saw Take That through that tour. An artist like Beyonce, when she toured the OTR2 tour, needed 7 747 cargo planes to ship the tour around the world. The stage that you can see her and her dancers on, detached from the main stage, traveled over the audience and back again, delivering a superstar safely night after night after night in a highly automated system. Moving on a little bit more, a band like U2, this structure was unbelievable, needed 120 trucks. The tour grossed 560 million. it was seen by 7 million people. The structure itself couldn't be built anywhere apart from a stadium. So in terms of testing it and building it, actually had to hire a stadium to do the test and development work for a structure that large. I think you can see the spire was above the football stadium roof there. So our expectation and our creative kind of demands, artists' creative demands, has been pushing for bigger and bigger and more spectacular shows. And it wasn't just in music and touring rock and roll, but in things like live spectaculars. So notably the Olympic 2012, London Olympics, bringing in Hollywood A-listers in terms of Danny Boyle, creating a show and spectacular, really that was kind of unmatched, certainly up to that point. I don't have a slide, but the Winter Olympics around that time at Sochi featured a full-sized icebreaker, which actually kind of sailed through the arena, delivering a operatic performance. And that was actually created by a company in Yorkshire. But just to give you an idea of the ambition and the scale of these kind of things and how they've moved forward. Again, outside of kind of sports spectaculars, but in terms of World Expos, this is the World Trade Show, the World Expo in Astana in 2017. This was the centerpiece. It's the Nur Ellen sphere. It was the largest sphere ever created in the UK, in the world. Sorry, it was the centerpiece of the show, and it was covered in addressable LED. And that LED solution was designed by the team here at Backstage Academy. It had 115 countries exhibiting and 22 world organizations. And actually, we're going to see something similar. It'll be interesting what Dubai has to offer in the delayed expo that's running in this year, but it was due to be in 2020. In other worlds, experience and theatre and kind of theatricality has started to develop. This is a development called Alternet, which is in London at Tottenham Court Road tube station on the new Crossrail line. It's the world's largest LED screen. It's completely kinetic, it's movable, and it can be folded in and folded out. The whole venue contains performance space, rehearsal, staging, theatre, as well as entertainment space, hospitality space, and offices as well. And we've seen over the years these things getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but that all comes with a cost. And I'll talk a bit about that cost and a little bit about what we do to deal with it. Finally, in terms of corporate trade shows, exhibition stands, conferences have been building and building and building and getting more and more complex and larger and larger. Our expectations now have been building and been fueled by the creative kind of drive and ambition of brands and artists and designers to create more and more compelling structures that are going to really grab our attention. Bigger and bigger, more complex, more involved. And all of those collectively need a lot of these. I think I mentioned U2, 120 trucks, a regular kind of touring setup that would come through here at Production Park in Wakefield, where I'm based. It is 30, 40, 50 trucks. Just to give you an idea, each truck and a driver and fuel would cost a tour around about $250,000. So clearly there's not just an environmental imperative, but there's a cost imperative as well. If you can reduce the number of trucks in a tour, you can save carbon, but also you can save costs as well. The one thing we found so far is that there's very little research in this area to really support large-scale movements and developments in tackling these kind of problems. We all know, because we see how these stages are created, the costs involved in touring, but there's very little hard evidence. Radiohead did a study, sponsored a study quite a long time ago then now, and that study identified that the bulk of the carbon cost for a tour was actually in the audience, in traveling to and from the event, the merchandise and so on. Massive Attack actually conducted a study just recently, and that looked at different approaches. So it looked at doing things like have a bedding logistics planning to make sure that tours were planned in a more sequential kind of logical way, more efficient way, flying less, playing CO2 neutral venues, looking at things like ticket prices. So ticket prices included public transport provision as well. On the back to the Radiohead research, it looked at bands having 2 sets of tour staging. So the kind of staging that I talked about, actually having multiple sets to avoid air freight costs and just multiplication. Actually, U2 had 3 sets for their tour, and using sea freight instead of air freight where possible. All things excluding Suez Canal issues, let's just say, anyway. But what we're trying to do is to think about how we can still deliver large-scale, spectacular solutions that can meet client demands, artists' kind of creative desire, and our expectations as audiences as well, that can still have the wow factor, but that can be a bit more manageable in terms of the carbon footprint. The carbon challenge is not unique to live events and spectaculars and entertainment technology. For many, many years, we've been watching, consuming film, Hollywood film in a traditional cinema sense, but increasingly in a non-linear kind of streaming sense, where multiple crews were being active across, number of continents, flying talent, crew, kit, sets, building bigger and bigger backdrops, standing sets in large-scale studios like a Pinewood or a Leavesden for Warner Brothers and so on, and bigger and bigger and bigger budgets. We will kind of, as consumers, we will kind of hungrily kind of gobble up all that content and enjoy those theatrical spectaculars. But actually, it's quite interesting in how what was the film industry and is now more like the streamed high-end TV market, has started to tackle those kind of problems, partly because of necessity, but also I think the market was moving in this direction. And ironically, using a lot of technology that's been derived in the live events industry, we've seen shows like Mandalorian launch in the last year or so with streaming services, but still filmed in a single volume using LED technology, multimedia streaming, and mixed reality environments that have been created in games engine software. So software platforms like Unreal as well, where you can film a whole series and actually never leave a volume in Hollywood. They're much more efficient. Again, there's a real lack of evidence about carbon footprint, but the non-verified guesstimate really is that these are using 10 times less carbon than a traditional filming process would have done. They're also incredibly efficient in terms of filming time, because you can capture content quite efficiently and turn things around. Instead of reset, you're just pumping out a different backdrop, different content. Your cameras are aligned to the screen, to its environment, with performers as well. This is a set in Berlin for a Netflix production, a German historical production called 1899. You can see it's a large sort of almost circular LED wall mimicking a seascape with a hybrid kind of prop of a boat where you've got cast and crew, and again, reformatting different environments, but filming in a volume rather than filming out on location or in large scale kind of water tanks and so on. In the world of live broadcast, I think we've kind of maybe recognized that this happens, but I don't think it's necessarily always, people are necessarily always aware of what's going on. We're seeing bigger and bigger worlds, but filmed in smaller and smaller places. ITV's Euros coverage recently, I can just about talk about it now. I've got over the fact that we lost some penalties again. Was filmed by a company called White Light in an incredibly small space in the kind of ground floor of a unit in London. But to me as a viewer, to all of us as viewers, it looked like there was a kind of studio set up with the Tower Bridge and the London Eye and the Thames in the backdrop with the right amount of lighting for whatever time of the day the game was on. We're also seeing it in corporate, where people are able to film corporate video, branded content in different environments, in very small footprint, very low cost of access, certainly in terms of set build and so on, but with incredibly high-end results as well. And last but not least, before I leave the world of TV, we need to just realize that the budgets are still there. This is a kind of a preview still from the new Amazon Lord of the Rings prequel, which is rumored to be, nobody exactly knows, but it's rumored to be $1 billion budget, which would make it the most expensive TV show of all time. So why are we interested, and who are we? So we're based at Production Park in Wakefield, which has a 20-year legacy now of being involved in TV, in theatre, in film, in live events, in corporate, and in entertainment technology generally. And we're looking at how we can work with our clients and help to tackle some of those issues that I've identified earlier on, but still balancing that out with a creative output and our artistic kind of endeavor to create larger and larger and bigger shows with that kind of wow factor. This is an advert for a chair business that we put in one of our studios through last year, which integrates a kind of hybrid mix of live video recording, but also addressable LED panels, and creates a bit of a wow factor around the product. So we're really interested in doing lots and lots of different things and different treatments. We've moved to live streaming because our clients have demanded that through COVID, and we hosted the Netball Super League, the Vitality Super League. Every game, all the way up until the kind of playoffs and the final, the whole league season was all filmed here in Wakefield, and we repurposed our studio and adapted and changed to be able to kind of take that on. We're also home to Backstage Academy. And Backstage Academy is where the next generation of technical expertise that's driving all of these shows are being trained. It's a unique institution. We give students opportunities to work on real life projects and real life challenges. And you can even do short courses in learning how to set off pyro. It may not be the London opening ceremony, but it's a start, and everybody has to start somewhere. In terms of XPLOR, as Charles said, we're developing and we're on site building the world's first R&D centre for entertainment technology and production. The large-scale studio, Studio One, has been here since 2005, and we're building a sister facility in XPLOR, which will take that on and install it with the next generation of technical expertise, technical fit-out, and support services. The building itself is BREEAM Excellent, and we're doing everything we can to make it as carbon neutral as possible. But more importantly, really, the expertise and the know-how in the team inside that building are trying to build a much more carbon neutral, more carbon friendly entertainment industry. XPLOR, in our world anyway, stands for experiment, prototype, learn, optimize, and repeat. We're really interested in this kind of cycle of learning and knowledge exchange, and trying to bring expertise from things like the aerospace industry into live events. So we really see a role for us in sort of evangelizing new technology and addressing challenges such as how you address a kind of high carbon burn environment in a future low carbon world. So in terms of our work, we've been running a number of showcases to a whole range of different clients, looking at what kind of technology is possible looking at live events, looking at virtual production, bringing in suppliers like Four Wall and Row and White Light, and mixing them with creatives, with freelancers, with smaller businesses. We're really interested in additive manufacturing and how that can play a role in development of props and staging. You can imagine a scenario where a part in one of the tours or shows that I showed you breaks and you're halfway around the world tour. It would be great if you could then, if the team took 3D printer equipment with them, and they can literally just 3D print another part. And that's how we see it playing. But equally, in scenic art pieces like the Katy Perry cat that you just saw in the video, how we can take artistically creative individual pieces and actually replicate them in a small run production sort of sense, so that we can do really clever things with 3D printing in terms of scaling and modeling and so on, apart from the structural stuff as well, where we see that playing in an engineering sense. The center is 2,500 square meters, and it's a mixture, as I said, of that large studio space, which will be rehearsal, test, development, but also things like an archive, an engineering workshop equipped with the latest technology for our team to work with clients and their own research, and then pre-visualization suites, looking at how you can identify designs and lay them out before the show is ever taken down that sort of production process. As I said, we're on site now. We are in a kind of 40-week build cycle. We're all praying for good weather through the winter, and we hope to be open in the spring of next year. We as a team, we've been in place for about 6 or 7 months now, and we've done a number of projects, one of which actually goes live this week in Wakefield with an artist with a really amazing sculptural piece of neon. And we worked on the engineering side of that in terms of the design, development, and automation of that piece. So we kind of collaborate with different artists in lots of different ways as well. We're really interested in creative markets. We believe that we can offer a number of different services to creative agencies, to marketing teams who are interested in developing a whole range of solutions for clients, whether that's a brand activation piece, whether that's a piece of video content filmed in a very different environment, filmed in a very different way, and integrated different kind of mixed reality pieces as well. So we wanted to put an offer together for people on this conference that we'd offer a 2-hour kind of taster session almost, so that you can come and chat to the team, come and have a look around here. It's always a cool place to come and have a look around anyway. And then we'll even treat you to lunch in our local tour catering cafe, where you'd be eating with food created by the chefs from Red Hot Chili Peppers or Metallica or Muse, because they normally would be out on tour with those kind of bands. So that's an offer to anybody on the BMC, and we're really proud to be part of this sort of event. I'm not sure how many years it's been going now, but I know it's a really popular event, and it's a bit of a staple in the calendar. So we're based just south of Wakefield, just off the A1. So we're pretty accessible, and we've got a train station 10 minutes away, so you can reach us pretty easily. In terms of the websites, so Production Park is the place, and that's at productionpark.co.uk. XPLOR is the research centre, which is my main focus, and then Backstage Academy is backstage-academy.co.uk if you want any inquiry about education and training for the live events sector. And that's me done.
Fantastic, Jim. Thank you so much. We've got a question actually from Jim Scott, and that is, how do you think creative?
Excuse me. Sorry.
How do you think creative agencies can make use of XR technology for their clients?
I think you can start to think about a client requirement in a very different way. Some of the examples I showed you there were, the case of 1899 was mimicking a real life environment. You could film that shot. You would have traditionally filmed that shot with a large tank. You might have filmed it at sea, but you're more likely to have filmed it in a large tank with a backdrop. Mandalorian, obviously talking about different worlds being created. Now, we can create anything that that client would want. We can take a real environment and map that and create it virtually. So you could be talking about an Arizona desert scene or a rainforest scene, but equally, if you wanted to create a kind of world with abstract art or different environments, then we have the technology to create that. And we can do all the same. Once it's been created and it's built, you can literally shoot in that, through a day, through a few days, or a week. So you can switch. So we don't need to repurpose things over the course of a number of days, and you don't need to move from location to location to location. And I think the other thing is we can blend that with some other interactive elements as well. So you can do a lot of things where you can offer clients interactivity. We've seen in sports where you have kind of dynamic effects where you've got, green screen interviewing somebody from somewhere else in the world being green streamed into a live streamed environment. So you could have a team of corporate execs in one country being green screened in, and you could be interviewing them in a live environment here in Wakefield without actually flying them around the world. So there's a whole series of different things, really. And I think come to us with your creative challenges, and we're always happy to start to have a think about it. I think that's a crucial thing that we've seen. We can do that in live over many, many years.
That was the point I was going to emphasize, Jim. And thank you for the incredibly generous offer to VMC attendees. And actually, Robert's asked a question, which actually I think you've answered, which is, are you open for business with creatives who want to work on ads and campaigns? And you have just answered that. And I think, my recommendation is, I think it's at the start of this event, that I think creativity is really stimulated at the boundaries and fringes of where different disciplines meet. And perfect example of what you've shown. I've got one more question, which it sounds as if you're in an incredibly fast developing and fast changing field. I'm kind of curious about what the constraints are. And I guess they're just kind of, in reality, financial, aren't they? I mean, if the budget's there doesn't sound like there's much you can't do.
Yeah, I mean, we're a family company, but we have a very close chain of command to our shareholders, and they are backing the development of XPLOR, and they're backing the equipment and the staffing of the centre. The interesting thing, I think, with virtual reality and some of the virtual production techniques is that we can be a test bed. So some of those larger scale developments, the stuff in Berlin or the stuff that Mandalorian use, they might be 100-meter long, piece of LED panel effectively that you're filming in. Well, we can mimic that, create that on a small format, but the technology driving it, the resolution of the screen, the effects that you can generate are just the same. We're building an 18-meter by 18-meter volume here, but we have access, obviously, to a larger studio as well. We think we can take on a lot of development work, projects, training for companies who've got aspirations to get to that kind of level, but actually want to start in a more realistic kind of scalable way. But equally, our volume, our space, our studio space for virtual production will be bigger than quite a lot of the main broadcasters use to do broadcast TV. So the Euros, for example, used a way smaller volume than us. We're up for a challenge. We're already looking at new materials for live. So part of the engineering challenge that our team is addressing is moving from, if I can lift it, these kind of things. So this great big, heavy aluminium, steel, wooden structures to composite materials, which open up access for crew, save weight, can be easily built from recycled materials or recycled again. So it could be more like a circular economy thing. So we're driving some of the challenge ourselves as a team, but equally we're more than open to challenges from individuals, and we've got some exciting opportunities. And when the project that we worked on that's being released this week, he came with a challenge of creating a very large scale neon structure that could work and fill a workshop space rather than being a kind of tabletop version. So our engineers got onto the challenge, and we've delivered something which is fantastic. And I've seen it in action. And I think when it goes when it goes live to the public at the end of the week, everybody will be blown away with what it can do. So that's the kind of thing we're up to, really. And yeah, come and talk to us and have a chat.
Yeah,
that's the main.
Quite strongly agree. I really recommend people do come and see you. And I think I'm very aware that many of our members are solving problems and helping their client base with communications challenges and opportunities, which goes so far beyond print. And so what you've demonstrated today is very relevant. And actually, I think a really strong sustainability message that's come through as well in lots of ways. So thank you for that. Absolutely brilliant. Great.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. So that brings us to the end of our second session. Looking forward to our third session, which will start at 3:30 in 15 minutes time. Innovation versus disruption. As I said earlier, I think we've all encountered quite a lot of disruption over the last 18 months or so. And that's with Morden Wright-Off, who is the editor-in-chief at Inkish TV. So I look forward to seeing you at 3:30. Thank you, everyone.